Hello, Ariel. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. It's so lovely to meet you.
Yeah, same. So I'm very glad to do this interview today. Today we're going to be talking about your book, Saving Chupie. Can you start by telling us what inspired you to become an author and a bit more about yourself in the book?
Well, first of all, it's lovely to meet you. It's always nice to speak to readers of my actual books instead of just reading reviews or reading comments. But yes, so in terms of how I became a writer, I've always written. I started with poems and songs. They were terrible. Do not ask me about them. And then later on, when I was a teenager, I was 14, 15 years old, I started writing my very first novel. And that was also terrible. And slowly I became better at it and published my first book way, way later. But yes, I started mostly through poetry and short stories and song lyrics. And then I moved on to actual books because I wasn't a big reader when I was younger. I started reading seriously when I was 13 years old.
Mm-hmm. So what inspired you to write Saving Chupie?
So this book is special for me because it's set in Puerto Rico, which is where I'm from, where I currently live. But the idea wasn't mine. So I was basically hired to write this book. Someone else came up with the idea. My editor at HarperCollins came up with the idea and she wanted me to work on it because she knew that I was from Puerto Rico and she wanted someone who was still in the country and was aware of the geography and the history and the cultural aspects. So she
Mm-hmm.
asked if I wanted to write the book. And I was like, what is the book about? I read about it and I was like, I will not allow you to hire anyone else. I have to write this book.
Yeah. Um, so how did you come up with the title?
So the title was actually already established. It was sent to us. I was like, that is the cutest title I've ever had come across me. So I said, yes, I like it. We're gonna go with it.
Yeah. So are there any interesting or memorable experiences from your life that influenced into the book, other than you being Puerto Rican and um Violeta also being Puerto Rican?
Yes, so I don't know if you know Sailor Moon, the anime, but Violeta has like a lot of personality traits that remind me of Sailor Moon, specifically Serena before she becomes the Sailor Moon persona. And I grew up watching Sailor Moon. It's literally the only anime that I remember watching seriously. And I also think that the aspects of her wanting friends so badly that she is putting herself out there and really wanting to connect with Diego and Lorena, that was me growing up as well. I always wanted to have many, many friends, and I was trying very hard to impress other people. And sometimes I did it, and sometimes I scared them away, like she does in the beginning of the book. But I grew up being a huge animal lover, but I didn't have my very first pet until I was in sixth grade, I believe, and it was a chicken. My very first pet was a chicken, and then I had a dog, and I've only had dogs ever since.
Yeah. I've always wanted a pet, but unfortunately I'm allergic to dogs.
Oh, you are. No.
Yeah. Can you tell us about the process of writing the book?
Oh, the process of writing the book was quite quick on my side because I was writing the script. And then once I wrote the script, I believe I started in January of 2019. And it was like five drafts that lasted up until I believe November of 2019. So it sounds like a long time, but I literally like wrote so fast, sent it to my editor. She sent her notes back. I revised it and sent it back to her multiple times. And once I'm done writing the scenes as a script, that is then sent to an illustrator who makes sure
Mm.
that everything is in artwork form. And thank God we have Ronnie Garcia, who is our illustrator, and they did such an amazing job. I think that the first time I saw the description of the book, I also saw a Chupie illustration before there was actually any real concrete scripts. I saw illustrations of Chupie, and that motivated me to work faster because I wanted to see more of Chupie and I wanted to see more of every single aspect of this world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, a lot of scenes in here definitely had Chupie.
Yes. And Chupie is something that I never thought I would write because he is so lovable. In my
He's sort of
country,
like
we would
a
have,
he's sort of like a mythical form of a dog.
yes, exactly. He has
Yeah.
very dog-like qualities. And we grow up here in Puerto Rico being quite afraid of the chupacabra. It's like not a friendly animal or monster. And to twist that around and make him more of like a puppy was
Mhm.
so much fun because I would have loved a little Chupi running around my neighborhood.
Yeah. So, um, what inspired you to create the character Violeta?
Violeta was actually someone that I saw myself in because she's very curious and she's adventurous, but she doesn't really know how to lie very well. She's like, I'm gonna hide things from you, but you're gonna know that I'm freaking out. So my lie is gonna be uncovered at some point. And that's how I feel like I was as a child. If I would cut my hair, my mother would always find out, obviously, because she would comb my hair. She's like, did you do something to your hair? And I'm like, no. And there's literally uneven everywhere. And she was like, yeah, you cut your own hair, did you? I'm like, I did. I'm sorry. And I would always like be all sweaty before class because I was running around. I was the only girl running around playing hide and seek. And all of my fellow classmates were like pristine, very pretty. And I'm there just like looking like I ran a marathon. And my teachers were like, your daughter is very active. She's very her own character in her mind. She's her own main character. And Violeta feels like that. She feels like she's quite dramatic, over the top, very loud. And I was like that as a child.
Yeah. So what gave you the idea to create the characters Diego and Lorena?
So Diego and Lorena were basically friends that I would have loved to have when I was a child. I think Lorena specifically because when she was in the description of the book, she was not allergic to animals, specifically to dogs. And I came up with that idea. I pitched it to my editor, and she was like, oh, that makes sense. That would, of course, explain why she's so passionate about having Chupie around. And she's more willing to protect him versus Diego, who is like, oh my God, this is a dangerous monster. What are you doing? We should not have this as a pet. And Violeta is of two minds. She's like, I know, yes, he has a reputation, but he's so cute. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not going to get rid of him. I'm not going to tell anyone about this. We're going to keep him a secret and we're going to take care of him. So I think that we wanted to have Violeta, those two minds or those two perspectives in other characters as well. Diego is the extreme of this is dangerous. We shouldn't be doing this. He's like more like the adult side of the friendship. And then Lorena is more of the playful, cutesy. No, we have to keep him safe. He's so like we can't do anything to harm him. So
Yeah. Well, I can definitely understand both points of view, but I'd side with Lorena on this one.
of course, yes.
Yeah.
Lorena is rational and she's very talented at the sciences,
And she's
but she's
very
also
smart.
quite, yes, she's very smart, but she's a human being with a heart. And I think that's a nice balance of someone who's very cold and analytical at times and also very sweet.
Yeah. So how long did it take to write the book, like approximately?
I think it was most of 2019. And then after 2020, it was mostly just focusing on the art. I would say that our illustrator worked the hardest because they have to be the one to translate all of the things that I write as a script. They have to go and
Into,
draw everything at
yeah.
like drawing and then add color. And if something in the text isn't working, or if I write too much and it doesn't fit into the bubbles, then they have to go in and tell me, Amparo, you wrote too much. We have to start cutting things. And so it's my job to make it better for them to actually represent visually in
Yeah.
ways that people can read and have fun reading it.
Mhm. And well, I certainly had fun reading your book. And
Oh,
so, yeah, I like how um there's this actress in this movie who reminds me of Lorena. She's like very bouncy and bubbly, and
oh,
she's like she takes very dramatic turns in emotions. She's like
Oh,
she's like very happy at one point, and then she's like, but what if this happens at one point? Yeah.
do you know the actress's name or where she's
Yeah,
in?
Kajol Devgan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
she's an Indian
interesting.
actress.
That's amazing. Because that's
Um,
Lorena to the T. That's
yeah.
her.
What message or theme do you hope readers learn from the book?
Oh, I think that we should all have empathy and deep understanding and care for others, even if we don't understand them at first. We want to have or want to hold space for others to reveal their truths to us, but we don't want to discriminate or we don't want to separate ourselves just because we're different. I think it would be very just not nice in general, but also we would be hurting ourselves too. We're not just hurting others, we are limiting ourselves. Therefore, we are limiting the way that we can love and the way that we allow love into our hearts. We don't want to do that.
We don't. Definitely.
We do not know. Not in this house.
Yeah. So if you could give one piece of advice to someone who wants to become an author or an author who's already an author, what would it be?
Nothing you write is ever a mistake if you truly wanted to write it that way initially. Of course, we all edit our work, we revise, we do all these changes or make all of these changes throughout the process of writing a book. But whatever is on the page initially is the first step too many. And I think that without that first step, you will not have anything else. So just keep writing and don't focus on how perfect it needs to be or how well written it needs to be. There are no mistakes because you are getting to the place where you need to go. So keep going.
Yeah. And so if you could choose one piece of advice you would give or something you would just tell your younger self, if you went back in time, what would it be?
Be more open to failing because failure, I used to be very afraid of failing in front of other people, of being seen as ridiculous or embarrassing. And I think that being a failure is great in the sense that you learn from everything that you suck at or are not good at. Eventually, you find your way because you don't have to be great at everything. You don't even have to be good at everything. You can say, yeah, this was not my best moment. I'm not good at this. For example,
Like,
I
this
am
is not
not
for
good at
me.
math. Yeah, I'm not good at math. I don't know if you're good at math. I'm just not a math person at all. More
Yeah.
of an arts
Is it
person.
possible? Is it possible to like? Is it possible to like not like math and be good at it at the same time?
I think so. I think there are people who can be good at math but just also be like, well, that's not my passion in life. For
That is,
example,
yeah,
I
that's
think that a
definitely.
lot of people have that. Yeah. It's like, I might be good at math. I might have the possibility of having a job that uses a lot of math, but I personally could not be that person because I neither love math nor am I good at it at all. Like, I literally
Yeah.
do very simple calculations with my calculator. I can't even like subtract and like do anything by myself. It's that bad. It's
Yeah.
not bad.
Well, I mean, I don't blame you. In my opinion, math is pretty boring at times.
It is. Thank you for saying that. I feel so seen.
Yeah.
I feel appreciated.
So what advice would you say?
I think my advice would be open to failure, but if you fail too much, it might mean that you are in the wrong area or you're supposed to take a detour and be somewhere else. Or it could just mean that you're not ready for what is eventually going to belong to you because you're never late to what is actually yours. You arrive just on time. It just depends on how willing you have to be or how disciplined you are or how much you train yourself to be patient.
Yeah. Um, that's a very good that's a very good piece of advice that right there. Um,
I struggle with patience. So I guess my life has been just an exercise in it over and over again. But I guess at the same time, it's great because sometimes, publishing is a world that moves very slowly. So I think that
mhm,
when you're working on a graphic novel, that moves even slower because you are only in control of the writing of it, and then
And
everyone
you can't
else.
control anyone who's drawing. I
Correct.
feel like the people who are in a traditional publishing company, I think it might be overrun by alien slots. That's my theory. Because I don't know how else it could be so slow. It
They
just
are
doesn't seem possible.
very, they take their time. They take their time. And I think that it's even slower for anything that has art in it, like literal illustrations.
Yeah,
So anyone working on graphic novels right now and you both write and illustrate, you are better than me because I can only write. I cannot draw even stick figures in a nice way. So anyone who can
same.
draw is a hero in my eyes.
Yeah. So what do you enjoy doing for fun?
So I think in the United States it's called soccer, but around the world the sport is called football or football. I love football, but it's a recent love in the sense that I've always liked it, but I think it's like year number 2 for me where I actually know a little bit more about the world leagues and specific teams. I support specific clubs and such. So every weekend you will watch me or you will see me watching football matches. I really like the British League, the Premier League. So, but I'm watching the Champions League. I don't know if you're aware, but that one is like the best clubs in Europe. I don't know why I'm doing this, the quotation marks, because they are the best clubs in Europe. And I also really love music. So I love pop music of in all sorts of languages, but I'm very much partial to Korean pop or K-pop. And I am getting closer and closer into more of Puerto Rican pop artists. I know I should like my own country's artists, but I tend to have this thing where in my mind, English is my first language, but it's actually Spanish. I speak Spanish first, but I like things in English more, which is very bizarre. And I think it's because there's a disconnect. I use Spanish all the time in my daily life. So English for me feels like an adventure. It's different. And I
Yeah.
will enjoy music in English more or in other languages more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I'm that with me, it's sort of the opposite because I
Right.
mean, if it's like a certain type, I'm very picky in a lot of ways.
That's great though. That's very, very good.
I'm picky with music. I'm picky with food, especially food.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
because like if there's an onion, I literally like I pick it out of there. If there's a tomato, I pick it out of there, which is
Yeah.
like the worst habit of all times.
It's not a worst habit of all time. I think it's very
Well, it's
good
a
to
pretty
know
bad habit.
what you don't like. Yeah. Is it the texture or the taste that you don't like?
I mean, it's a lot of it, and it also ends up with the way it looks. Because sometimes I tend to be a perfectionist.
Yeah, the aesthetics are just not working for you. You're like, no, this is not the vibe, you guys. I'm not eating this.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And do you listen to a lot of music that would be considered
Yeah, I
popular
love
or
music.
okay,
Yeah. So, are you planning to write any more books?
I am, but I would love to tell you that I want to write more books set in the Chupie world. However, that is not necessarily happening right now because I'm not, as I mentioned, like the creator or the originator of the idea. I would have to see if my publisher wants to keep discovering or exploring ideas within that world. But
That would
as
be
for
so
my other, that
fun.
would be so fun. I think so too. I agree. So I would
I
have to pitch
know.
an idea for them, yeah, and see if they're
Yeah.
game for it. And but yes, I am currently working on things this upcoming June. I have another graphic novel out, but it's actually 4 short story comics, all set in the world of Encanto, the movie, the Disney movie.
Oh,
So I wrote
nice.
that little collection of comics. It's coming out, I believe, June 25th. And of course, that's with Disney. And then I have another book coming out in September, and that's a very, very young readers, a book for young readers, but it's the biography of Bad Bunny, who is an artist here in Puerto Rico. So those are the 2 books that I'm coming
Yeah.
out with this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's a lot of books. Yeah. Um.
Yeah, I have a lot of things sometimes.
Yeah. But that's good, because then like That's more books to add to your collection, and then you can say in your biography, I have this many books. Look at that.
Yeah. Look at me writing all these books.
Yeah.
I did that.
Yeah, that would be pretty fun to talk about.
Yes.
And so thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this interview.
You are the absolute best.
Yeah, thank you. And you are too. And so good luck with your future books.